Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to have really nice conversation here. I've known all of them for a while, and they have a lot of content to share. I just want to start with one question. How many people here are founders? Good. How many of you have already raised money? Ooh, okay. Who is fundraising right now? Wow, good. So you're in the right place. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to do one round of questions for each one, and then if we have time left, we can ask all the other stuff. I'll shoot other stuffs. So let's start with Gina. Gina, so you're telling us the 4 things, right? You look for? What are those 4 things?
Yeah, I'm a super nerd. I was always a nerd in school, and so it was like...
She's Brazilian.
I'm Brazilian.
She's Brazilian.
Like, there's a panel, I must prepare, so I came up with the things, and they're making fun of me. But I will share them with you today, what I think makes for an amazing founder. So I would say, number 1, an obsession with a problem. And that's really important, because we talk to a lot of founders who identify an opportunity for business, but aren't really obsessed with solving that problem. And that's a really important distinction, because it determines whether you keep going or you don't. I'll go quickly, because I know we have little time. 2, an obsession with the customer. Because if you don't think about the customer, and if you don't get to know your customers, you are in the wrong place. And that happens a lot. For example, I know a lot of founders in Brazil who are class A, or like have a lot of wealth, and they are building for people in a completely different socioeconomic condition. You need to understand who you're building for. 3, metrics. You can do a lot of things, but if you don't actually see metrics moving significantly, you can just spin to death for a long time. So I would say those are the 3 things. And the 4th, which doesn't fit this model, is an incredible ability to story tell. And that I'm very happy to talk about more, but I cannot emphasize that more. The co-founder of Duolingo, where I worked for a long time, was an engineer, but he could captivate anyone with why it's important to solve the problem of language education at a global scale. And that works for recruiting, for fundraising, for getting customers, for PR. If you can't communicate that effectively, you can't build a global business. That's it.
Right. But amazing. You did it. Sacha, on the other hand, what are the red flags? What turns you off?
When you are pitching to investors, you need to think about all the 4 things that Gina said, of course, but also you need to try to correct all of those things that in a way turns us off, right? And what we are looking for usually is a very interdisciplinary team. So, for example, if you're building a technology startup, you need to have the techie inside of the team, not only the storyteller, but also the guy that can ship the product, right? The guy that can build what you are dreaming of building to solve the problem that you are solving. So at the end, a red flag would be not having a technical founders inside of the team. Then, for example, another red flag that we see a lot, and probably in the early stages we see it more, is a not so balanced cap table, where you have like a cap table of, I became with an idea and I gave Gina only 5% of it, and we are co-founders. And then after a while, it creates problem inside. So our recommendation always is try to be 50-50, or a third if you are 3. So another red flag usually becomes the cap table. And then another one is when the founders are not that involved with the problem that they are solving. It's like you need to be really in love with the problem that you're solving and not the solution. This is a cliche, completely cliche. But down the road, you will find so many obstacles that you really need to keep your motivation high, your resilience high. And that resilience will only come if you're really motivated about the problem that you are solving, right? So I believe that those 3 things would be one of the main red flags that we see often.
Good. Izabel, we just saw that a lot of people in the audience are fundraising, and we are in a big event, and you're sitting here. And for those who don't know you, how to cold call, how to reach an investor that you don't know. Is that an ability for a founder?
Yeah, I think I'll have the most straightforward answer here. Please don't cold call. I think that's the advice that I give. And I can tell for myself here, but Sacha actually agreed with me backstage. So I think for us on the investor side, I mean, we have a lot of contacts every day, people reaching out. Our LinkedIns are completely filled, our email also. So if you have a way to have a warm intro, that means that someone that knows us, has connections with us, can introduce you to us. That's the best way to approach, because otherwise your cold call, your cold email, your cold LinkedIn will be basically together with other thousands of cold calls and emails. So, and when you have warm intros, the person that knows us already sells you to us, which is amazing, because he or she can say everything that he or she likes about you, about your business, and so on and so forth. So I would say that, at least for Canary, we never had investment. We never actually invested in a company that reached out to us cold. So every company that we've already invested in somehow was introduced to us. So that's our story, of course. That can change. So we're always looking at our emails and LinkedIn's, but it's a shortcut if you have a warm intro.
Michael, Valor Capital is one of the top tier funds in the region, and you talk to founders with other characteristics than these three guys. Is there a difference? Is there much difference from what you're looking at on seed stage, early stage, and growth? Is that difference on what you're looking for? Is it much different?
With respect to the founder, right? So, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here. There's not a huge difference actually when we're looking, at the founders at the seed stage and at the Series A and even at the B stage. A lot of the characteristics have in common: curiosity, focus on the product, as was mentioned, storytelling, the ability to demonstrate leadership, to create a vision and then drive people around that. The big difference is that you have more data at the Series A and at the Series B, so you can see how those founders were able to perform, what they were able to do with the resources that they had, and most importantly, in the Series A, Series B, Series C, you begin to have the data, so the KPIs. You can measure cohort analysis, you can customer acquisition costs, lifetime value. At the seed stage, you're really just working with the founder and trying to understand their personal characteristics, like the storytelling thing, the resilience, the empathy. Do they have the ability to lead and to drive people to a single focus or goal? So I would say lots of things in common, but less data. So we would say the earliest stages are more art than science. And then as you move into the A and the B, the science or the metrics play a larger role.
A world-class founder is a superhero. I mean, you have all this references, right? Steve Jobs, right? Bill Gates, all this, Mark Zuckerberg, all the references, Elon Musk. Does a founder has to be that? A genius, the person that solves everything and has all the answers to be a world-class super founder?
It helps if they're a dropout from Harvard or Stanford. That's one of the basic characteristics.
Always helps, right?
Zuckerberg, Bill Gates. Actually, one from our portfolio, Cesar Carvalho from Gympass, dropped out of Harvard Business School to do Gympass. So,
So this is the fifth tip, right? Drop out of Harvard. Okay.
I was going to say Steve Jobs actually dropped out from my school, and I also dropped out from that school. So it's obviously important. But I would say, I don't think there's a recipe, but it would be silly to say, no, anyone can do it, which is obviously not true. You don't have to be born with specific characteristics, but you need to have an advantage. You need to have an unfair advantage at solving something. And that can be built in your lifetime, in your career. So if you work in an industry and you understand it really well and you understand the pain points that industry hasn't solved, that is a superpower that you now have, and that plus resilience and connections and just going at it and being obsessed with the customer and solving the problem with tech, that can make a big difference.
Yeah, and if I may, usually we see second-time founders being able to execute better because at the end they learn from the previous experience. It doesn't have to be a unicorn what you build first, but maybe you were like with a mistaken problem that you were solving, or not so big enough startup to be backed by VCs. So sometimes it's time to say no to the current solution that you're building and maybe start something else. And once you start something else, it's like 100x your lessons from the previous startup that you can apply to your new venture, right?
Yeah. Just adding on those guys' notes. I think one thing that I'm seeing that is really, really important too, at least for the VC world, is ambition. Ambition is really, really important, and ambition is not only where you want to go necessarily, is where you want to go, plus how you tell the story, plus what is your vision in terms of roadmap, and how do you sell that to investors, and how do you sell that to talent that you want to hire, how do you sell that to customers that you may want to sell to. So that's really, really important, and I think I see that trait in like most of the founders that we actually invest, and Elon Musk's and Steve Jobs too. And Gina mentioned resilience. That's understated. I mean, that's really, really important, because founding a company and operating, and it's not easy, like at all. So if you're sold in your passion and if you have resilience, I mean, you're halfway there in my vision here.
Michael joked about being a Harvard dropout, but I mean, is there a thing like you have to have a background like to be a founder, or anyone from any background can be a founder?
I think we've seen founders coming from all sorts of backgrounds. It really has to do with the problem that they're solving and their ability to gather people and resources to solve that problem. So if you think about it, many times innovation really comes from problems. If you don't have good problems, you don't have good startups, you don't have good solutions. And so it's the exposure to the problem, to the challenge, which is the big thing. So that can come from anywhere.
I think do you have any comments? For all the past 2 years, right? Everybody was looking for money. The money was free, pretty much free, and it seemed like you could fund anything. Every business has to be backed by VC. I mean, every founder has to go and look for capital to raise money. Does that has to be the obsession?
No. I think who here watches The Office or has seen The Office? It's one of my favorite shows. So Michael Scott explains that in order to start a business, you need an office and you need paper, right? And it's kind of like that. It's not like to start a business, you need to raise capital. Doesn't make sense. However, it is really tough to build something incredibly scalable if you don't have money, because you need to hire amazing engineers, and engineers are really expensive if you're going to hire amazing people. And not just engineers, right? But you need resources to make it happen, and you need enough resources to make it happen for as long as you need to find product market fit, which is longer than it sounds. So having resources to do that and to think big from day one is important, but you need to understand why you need the capital, what are you going to use it for, and what's the vision. Because also, if you don't have that, it's going to be harder to fundraise. But yes, you can bootstrap if you have an advantage into doing that, or if you have a lot of money.
Yeah, no, if I may, just a quick add. All the funds right now that are from Series A and beyond, they are looking for more scrappy founders that know how to manage cash inside the company and be very capital efficient. So at the end, it's like, try to accomplish.
You just blew my next question. So.
I'm sorry. But you need to be as capital efficient as possible. So in a way, it's not raising as little as possible, but in a way, what you do with the money that you're raising is also important, right?
Can I just add something here? VC money is a mean, not an end at any point. So I think in terms of this world-class founder topic, I think the founder's job is actually to understand, again, going back to the vision, to the future, where I want to be, and how am I going to do that. So in this how part, VC can come in, or maybe not. Money is just a tool. So, but if you do want to go towards this VC track, you kind of have to learn how to play the game and play the game. There's a game to be played. So VC is never, or money itself is never an end goal. It's just the mean. It's just a tool.
Yeah, I would just add that, venture capital is a very specific thing, right? It's only really existed since post-World War II, and people have been building businesses for the last, thousands of years. And so you have investors. It's just that venture capital is a specific type of capital, right? It's looking for very rapid, large-scale opportunities. And so you have to have a profile of a business opportunity that fits that profile of capital as well, right? So it's not for everybody, and I don't think that you have to go after venture. There's lots of other ways of funding your business. Bootstrapping is a very respectable way of starting a business and building it step by step. But in many cases, venture capital can make a lot of sense if you want to scale quickly and rapidly.
I'll also say, Gustavo, if you allow me, it also depends on what kind of business you want to build. It's totally fine to build, it's impressive to build a business that returns millions of dollars. And you can do that without capital, and you can be very happy and have a very comfortable life and make a name for yourself. You don't have to go and build a business that's going to be a fund returner, that's going to return hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion, to some VC. You don't have to, and you can still be very successful and impressive and make an impact. So it's a choice.
We've been talking and writing at startups. We write about it all the time. The VC winter, right? And Sacha kind of partially answered that, but I'll ask you free. On this VC winter, has it changed the way you look at founders? What you're looking for? Is that growth at all costs characteristics, or that growth at o sangue nos olhos, né? The chasing growth? I think that is not in the play anymore, right?
Well, in the past few years, and probably you have been seeing in a lot of news outlets about a lot of founders raising big funds, big rounds with big funds. So at the end, most of that was brought by an externality, which is global funds investing in the region. But the ones that we are in the region are very strong. I don't believe that there's a VC winter. It's just that we are not seeing a lot of founders that were raising money in the past in an easy way. And I assume that it happens the same to the three of you guys, that happens with Utopia, is that we're seeing amazing deal flow right now. Wonderful founders building great things, really committed with the problems, very talented people building amazing solutions, but the total amount of deal flow that we are getting is lesser than 2021 because there are less people quitting their jobs, 9-to-5 jobs, to start a company. Because it's harder to get capital. But at the end, I believe that it's a really healthy state that we are right now. And of course, it might increase a little bit in the future, or maybe it will drop a little bit more and then it start increasing. But the funds in the region, we are still very active. I assume the four of us, we are still very active. We are still looking for amazing founders building the admired companies of the future. So, and we have the dry powder, the investable money to do so. So keep being entrepreneurs, keep being wonderful, keep building things that are amazingly huge, and I bet that you will get the proper investment for your companies.
Anybody else?
You asked us if we analyze founders in a different way now. I'll try to tackle that. I think there's the business analysis, that is your point on growth at any cost versus like more sustainable business from start. So that's for sure a thing, and we obviously have to understand very early on if that business that person is trying to build or is building already has the means to be sustainable in the short term, or how capital intensive that business is. But in the founder side, I think one thing that I actually personally I'm going a little bit deeper now is the resilience pillar, let's say. So actually, how far is that founder wants to go? Does that founder want to go for that business? Because it's not going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. Sorry, at least harder than it was in 2021. So that's something that, for me specifically, I go a little bit deeper. But the strategy and the frameworks and how we analyze founders, honestly, hasn't changed. It's just how deeper you want to go in a specific criteria.
I'll add one point, Gustavo. You talked about growth at all costs, right? My background is in growth. It's not in VC. And it's at companies where we didn't spend any money with growth. It was just organic. And one thing that I see a lot of founders do is, oh my gosh, we have money, we need to go grow. But if you're not sure that you have found product market fit, that you have actually solved the real problem for a very large number of people, it doesn't matter how much money you put into that, it's never going to catch like a fire. It's just not going to happen. And so I would be much more interested in founders who actually understand that and understand CAC, LTV, ROI, unit economics, and how, 1 + 1 = 2. And looking at that, and it sounds obvious, but it's hard when you're an entrepreneur and you're under pressure to make it work and to just find an avenue.
And how do you know that a founder is up to something? I mean, you look at a person and say, I have a feeling. Do you develop that feeling? Is there, as you said, some characteristics you're looking for? 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings, or is it just feeling like you look at the person and spot somebody that you are the one? I mean, like Neo in the Matrix.
I have an amazing astrologist. Amazing.
The power of persuasion makes a huge difference, right? If I'm feeling convinced, I want to be sold. And when I get that feeling, it's like, wow, I get excited about the idea, and I see that person, that individual, able to get other people excited about the idea. That's just like a really great gut check from an early stage.
Yeah, and it's really important, the background check that we do during the due diligence. So sometimes at the beginning you might find founders that are really amazingly good in papers. It happened to us a few times in a way that is like, okay, this founder, second or third time founder, already had a few exits, maybe went to MIT or Stanford, Harvard, great business school in the States, and came back to solve this huge problem, and a few other things. But then when you start talking to former employees, former colleagues, former bosses, former investors, you start getting the red flags there, right? And you need to follow that path of the no-go in a way if you cannot do the proper background check on a founder that you were willing to invest maybe, but then you realize that it's not as shiny as it seemed.
Yeah.
Time for just one comment. I think when you raise capital, when you bring an investor in, it's like a marriage. So you have to like the person. Just like when we are analyzing a potential investment, we have to like the person on the other side too. It's a marriage. It's all about relationships. It's personal too. So that feeling that you mentioned, I think it's really important. Not the feeling specific, but the energy, the bonding, and the ability to be able to nurture a relationship towards the long term, because this is a long-term marriage. So I think that's really important.
Good. So most of you stayed, so which I think is a good sign. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.